the cloud, and we'll kick off. I am incredibly excited to have on the Power of Safe podcast, Lena Sisco. Lena is a former Department of Defense certified military interrogator and naval intelligence officer, the founder of the Congruency group and also Sector Intelligence, which we'll talk about, which also includes the TCG tribe, which is a wonderful group. She's an internationally recognized expert and specialist master trainer on items such as elicitation, interviewing, interrogation techniques, and a range of other items. She's got a BA in anthropology, a master's in archaeology, and is also qualified in psychology. She's the author of Honest Answers and You're Lying, which I've got there on my shelf behind me as well. She's a TEDx talker, a SpyX speaker, and a magnificent mentor, but also my friend. Lena Sisco, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. I love that introduction. And as I listened to you, I thought, what other ology can I study? There's got to be another one.
Yeah, there's definitely been a broad mix. And with when getting ready for the discussion today, I was thinking about, you've had just an incredible journey like that you've gone through from your experience and qualification. So I'd love to talk a little bit about that today. But
yeah.
Firstly, what got you from that transition from archaeology and what you were doing there to what you're doing now and being probably one of the most people-centric people that I know, whether it's mentoring and teaching or just the passion that you have with your work? What started that transition from archaeology and Indiana Jones to where you are now?
It was happenstance. There was no plan. There was no saying, this is what I want to do. It literally fell in my lap, this opportunity, and I went for it because my life stream was to become Indiana Jones. I love Harrison Ford. I fell in love with Indiana Jones. I'm like, I want to do that. I want to travel the world. I want to meet Maharajas. I want to go on adventures. I want to dig up cool artifacts. And I did. And some of my, I can't see any artifacts behind me, but you'll see this book right here. It's called The Archaeologist Was a Spy. And that goes back to when we first started using anthropologists and archaeologists to work for the OSS, which later became the CIA. That's a whole nother story. But anyway, but it's very odd that both my two worlds are, one is an archaeologist and then following up into intelligence. So I have to have that book because it bridges my world. But back to my story. Yeah, I was doing archaeology. I loved it. But you know what? It is not people-centric. And when I was doing it, I got to dig in Greece and Italy. I got my master's from Brown University in archaeology. It was amazing. But I just felt like there was this little piece. I'm like, wait a minute. I don't think this is really what I want to do. You know, I set out, everybody says, how many people get to do their dream job? I was doing it, but then I was like, I don't think it's my dream job. I didn't know. So, and the missing link was working with people. And that's really what ended up happening in my life that was completely unplanned. So fast forward, I come home, I get my degree, and I have no job. And my dad's like, what are you going to do with your life? You need to have a job. I was like, yeah, I kind of do. So my friend at the time said, well, I just joined Navy intelligence. I'm like, I don't even know what that is. What are you talking about? And he said, well, it's this program. You don't have to go full time. It's a reserve. And instead of being Indiana Jones, you can be James Bond. And I was like, oh, now we're talking. I'm like, because it's adventure. It's exploration and adventure. Seeing new things, meeting new people, experiencing new experiences. So he enticed me with this becoming James Bond. And I was like, oh yeah, I can do that. And he said, and by the way, it pays you. I was like, sign me up. And literally that's it. I didn't think anything about it. I had no military bearing, no military background. My dad was conscripted, but then, got out. He's a CPA. So it wasn't in me. It wasn't a path for me. It was nothing I ever gave a second thought about until it just appeared one day. And I was like, no, why not?
You've sparked something in me here that I'm very keen to ask you based on what you just said. I have limited awareness of archaeological research and processes there, but it's at some element must be a structured type of approach for uncovering insights. And that's also what you do with the work that you're doing now. So I'm curious to find if there's any crossover there between thought processes, or even if it's just an analytical approach to uncovering insights through archaeological research compared to what you're doing now?
Absolutely. And that's the link that I have grown to realize. It's all analysis. My mind is super analytical. I love that. I also love theoretical, working in those theories and concepts. I'm very visionary. So being an archaeologist, you have to be that way, because you're digging out artifacts or pieces of potsherds or bones, and you're looking at it and where it came in the, stratigraphic layer and what zone and locate, all this stuff. And you're piecing together little teeny bits of information to make this bigger picture. And you don't really know it. So you're analyzing it as guesswork. And then fast forward, when I was interrogating and I got trained as an interrogator, I had to take all these little bits of information I knew about the detainee, the circumstances of capture, who they are, what they like, what they don't like, who's talked to them before, what they know. And I have to put together a puzzle. And that puzzle came out in my, interrogation plan. And of course, when I was in talking to them and discovering more information, and then I'd have to go back and piece together all that information to see the bigger picture. The same exact mindset, the same analysis, just completely different fields.
So when I mentioned early on about how people centric you are in everything that you say and do, it's something that stood out when listening to previous interviews that you've had and the podcast interview you had with Robin as well, that even when you talk about archaeology and then interrogation, elicitation, you talk about loving Harrison Ford and then Pierce Brosnan. So even with your passion for the work that you're doing, it's still people centric, that alignment with you. It just shows the power of that. I wanted to ask you about, so there what we're having at Guantanamo Bay and your work in there. I mean, this podcast is about the power of safe and the importance of making people feel safe to work towards self-actualization and to get them comfortable as well from information point of view. In that sort of environment where you would have been dealing with a range of different people with different personality types and some strong personality types, can you explain a little bit about some of the process you would need to have done and what safe might have felt like to the people you're dealing with? Because you've got people sitting across the table that would have been saying some terrible things and passionate in their views and beliefs, and you needed to build rapport and have them feel safe to get to that important information. So that must have been very difficult. Could you step us through some of the process for that or some of the pathways you took?
Yes, I can, and I will. So when I teach my classes to this day, and especially my law enforcement who are doing those a little high sensitive, challenging interviews or conversations, I always tell them you have to create a safe environment. And for me, I'm like, how do you not know what that means? Right. And I'll say it and they're kind of like, well, how do we do that? I'm like, you don't know. And I keep forgetting that it's not one thing. I call it a recipe, right? It's a bunch of ingredients, but a safe environment is creating an atmosphere. The room you're in, the environment you're in, how we're interacting with each other, everything in that atmosphere is all for the purpose of making that other person feel comfortable. And you do this too, like even with your guests, right? You send out notes beforehand and just for that prep into, hey, this is what to expect. So you don't get caught off guard and you feel comfortable during the podcast process. Well, we do the same thing when we talk to people. We do our homework beforehand so I can make you feel very comfortable when you're talking to me. And that homework may be, I knew a little bit about you, so I know what to say that you like. I know what not to say that maybe you would take offense to, or that would stir up some negative emotions or defensiveness. So I do my homework about who you are, your personality preference, what what inspires you, what makes you happy, what you're comfortable to talk about. And I focus on that. I also build rapport with you. I also treat you like a human being. I'm going to show you interest. I'm not going to judge you. I don't care who you are, what you've done. I have sat across the table, as you know, from the baddest of the bad, and I don't judge. That's not my job. My job is to get you to trust me, to like me enough to tell me the truth and get information. That's my job. Somebody else can judge you, but that's not me. And I just don't do that to humans anyway. So what I want to do to make you feel safe and comfortable is, let's break it down to, bare minimum. Are you cold? Are you hot? Can I get you something like Maslow's hierarchy, right? Are you cold? Are you hot? Are you hungry? Are you thirsty? Are you in pain? Let's cover that groundwork first. And then we jump up the pyramid. Okay, well, how do you feel about this room? How do you feel about being here? How do you feel about the situation? How do you feel about whatever? Let's get to that level. And then I connect with you. And then I make you feel good about yourself. And I make you feel that you're not being judged. And so you're climbing up that ladder, Maslow's ladder, until finally you genuinely trust me, like me, and connect with me. And then therefore that, I think that fosters truth in any situation.
We're going to, I was going to lead down the path a little bit with the discussion today about how you make people feel safe being a teacher and mentor. And I can comfortably say that I've been going through that process with you. But, you know, in essence, with this circumstance, one of the other things that I found incredibly valuable from your training is that you talk about, even in negative circumstances, assigning a positive trait. And that's how you'll work towards building rapport and trust. Is that something that occurred during those circumstances for you? And how did you do that? Because obviously, whilst it's quite extreme, some of the circumstances you dealt with, these are transferable skills. So yeah, can you shed some light on that about assigning a positive trait even in those circumstances and how that works?
I started using this unknowingly, unwittingly in Gitmo. And I just, because of that natural inclination I have to make people feel comfortable and safe and not nervous or worried, or, you know, just feel really good, then I would tell people, listen, the one thing that I could find out about you that's really, really good, and I know if I told you that, it's going to make you feel really good, well, I'm going to tell you. So if I look at you and say, Scott, I will tell you one thing, you are not a coward. You, no matter when you came to me with your homework, even if you failed, you're like, I failed. This is what I did. It blew up in my face. I didn't do it, but that's what I did. Lena, help me, you know? And it was just genuine, authentic. And you're like, I'm not scared of failing. And so I would tell you, Scott, you have a lot of courage, and you have a courage to talk about things that are uncomfortable, even if it's the truth, because you're not scared of the truth. And what that does, it's almost like an embedded command. We can have a whole nother conversation about that, but it's an embedded command. You hear me tell you, you're trustworthy. And when people hear that they're trustworthy, they're honest, they're patient, they are open to hearing, you know, a difference of opinion. They don't judge. They start to actually become that. So if you told me, Lena, I always respected you because you're so honest, it makes me want to be more honest. With you, I told you that you have a lot of courage and you don't shy away from challenging things, even the truth. And even if the truth may hurt or be uncomfortable, you don't shy away from that. Then you're going to be like, that's right, I don't. And I can tell you the truth because I have courage, you know? And it sounds kind of silly, but it works. And I've been using it for 20 plus years. And what it does, some people think, well, you're lying to them. Nope. This is something that I can pluck out of a conversation while I'm getting to know you and building rapport. And even though you may have committed a heinous crime, you still may have courage. You still may have respect. And I'm going to tell you that to encourage you to keep trusting me and to keep telling me the truth. So that's assigning a positive trait. It's just telling people something good about themselves. Take it to, this is really good for people at work and their teams. If you are a leader anywhere, you are responsible. Your followers are your team, right? That is your team. You want and need your followers to trust you. And that starts with being genuine and having those good conversational skills and being vulnerable, being human. And it also comes with when you have that one-on-one with your team member to encourage them to open up and really tell you what's bothering them, because they may say, well, if I say what's really bothering me, I'm going to get fired, or they're not going to let me work on the project. They're going to reassign me, right? When you can tell that person that they have the courage to stand up and protect themselves and make sure that they're feel safe at work, and that they don't fear being open and honest in this conversation, that's what they will be. They shouldn't fear anything. And so it just helps people feel good about being open and honest.
There's some wonderful points there. I mean, that's one of the ideal outcomes I wanted to try and get from our discussion as well, just the transferability of the skills that you possess and that you share with people. I mean, from a leadership point of view, so many people get into leadership positions and they think because they've got the permission to lead or the authority to lead that they're leaders, but that's only just the beginning. It's about unifying your team around you. And I say like inclusion and then alignment, but people just jump to accountability. And so it was wonderful to know that, just about the transferable skills, like from a leadership point of view. I wanted to ask you about then from the educator point of view, because I mean, from a leader point of view, you've got your team, and we can talk about that a little bit later on, that in essence you've got the regular interaction with. From the trainer and mentor point of view, I mean, because all these skills that you teach are just, that's why they've had so much impact in my life across so many different areas. The importance of doing that for somebody as an educator or mentor, because that's probably not communicated as much about the benefit of that, about that connection as an educator or mentor, making people in that environment feel safe. And you need that openness to help make sure that they're taking on the information that you're getting, that they're able to have that dynamic with you. How did you find, or how do you find that as a mentor and leader, about having to make so many people over a confined period of time feel valued as well as safe, because you did it incredibly well?
I love that, feeling valued. I love that. And I think that's the key, is what can I do in the conversations, especially my one-on-one, because a lot of my programs, I meet with you guys, as you know, one-on-one. And when that time is short and it's valuable, and I want you to be critically, brutally honest. And you won't be that way unless you believe I truly value everything you say. And so let's back it up. How do I get you to believe that I do value what you say? And I tell you what, it starts with active listening to people, not the internal voice. Like, what am I going to say next? Or what are they going to ask me? Or what do I need to prepare for? Just stop and quiet that voice and really pay attention to the words people say. And some people say, yeah, but it's hard to do that. Here's a quick tip. How I make sure I pay attention to what people say all the time is, as they're talking, I repeat what they're saying inside my head. So I'm kind of getting it twofold, right? And when you pay attention to people, you're going to be able to pull out those ideas, those feelings, those emotions, the worry, the concern. It's going to come out. And then all of a sudden you're like, I know what worries them right now. Let me talk about it and ease it. I know what they're concerned about. Let me bring it up so maybe they don't have to. And when I bring it up, I'm going to talk about it like everything else, like I'm talking about a glass of water, right? Or my car. It doesn't matter. It's not scary. It's a conversation. And I never, ever make a conversation scary with another person, ever. Because let's face it, we fear conversations with people. And this is a side note, because I haven't told you this yet. I have a fourth book in mind, and I'm calling it, well, I'm going to call it this. I know it's going to get changed, but I want to call it Clearing the Air, because I think a lot of conflict can be resolved through good conversations and not fearing them. But I also think that a lot of people's lives can be saved if they didn't fear conversation. And the reason why I say this is because, and I'll circle back to the one-on-one mentor, is I was listening to Dateline the other night, and there was a lady who cheated on her husband, got the boyfriend, and instead of asking the husband for a divorce, they both killed him. Now, I know multiple killers who have done this. This is nothing new. And I kept thinking, and the reason why, when she was being interviewed, that she decided to kill her husband instead of ask for a divorce. Are you ready for this? She said, because I'm Catholic, I'm religious, and we can't get divorced.
Wow.
Oh, but you can murder. I'd love to know what society makes that, okay. What? And it really, I think it comes down to that fear of having a conversation. People fear asking for a divorce. People fear asking for a raise. People fear going to their leaders and saying, hey, this is bothering me. And so if we can have those open conversations without that fear, that's amazing. And I think, coming back to your original question, I think that's what I really try to establish when I'm doing that one-on-one mentoring is, this is a place you're going to be safe. I'm not judging you. I will never think a question is silly or insignificant. You can talk about anything that's embarrassing, that worries you. You can fail in front of me. And when people start to feel that from me, our relationship becomes stronger and stronger.
And you may not have, that's some great points there. I'm going to loop back to about the fourth book, but one of the points I wanted to mention is, and I haven't shared that feedback with you, the very first workshop I did with you, we were part of a group and some individual parts. And one of the reasons why I was so committed to continuing my education and mentoring from you as well was that in that group environment, as somebody coming new to it, new areas, new content as well, you want that feeling of comfort, and you manage to do that in that environment with a range of different personalities and experience. I myself personally felt recognized, valued out of there, and that complete undivided attention. And what you're saying there is just so powerful. I wanted to loop back to what you said about for with the book, and so I know I've obviously just heard about this is completely like off script, but my background also being security, safety, risk, and conflict, and I firmly believe that people just haven't got a healthy attitude towards conflict, and it's part of everyday life. And as a result of that, you've got, from an Australian perspective, 120% increase in violent and aggressive incidents in a retail environment, 140% in the healthcare environment, violent and aggressive incidents. And the sad thing is, speaking to people in some of those sectors, when you ask them about the statistics and how bad it is, and they say it's just part of the job, and they just accept it. If there's some more work that you're doing in that space about enhancing people's awareness and confidence to dealing with conflict, that's potentially life-changing.
I know.
Not just the incident, the flow-on effect and stress that can come with that. So it's fantastic to hear you're going to focus part of your time and energy towards that, because I think it's so incredibly timely for some work in that space. So
yeah. And, it's just, we are, whatever, in this day and age, there's so much aggression or is it, and hostility, like, where's it coming from? I kind of know we've gone through a lot, especially in the United States. We've gone through some major changes. And of course, the whole world went through a pandemic, and we've had to change our lifestyles. And I will tell you that a big fear, one of the biggest fears outside of public speaking, is change. COVID made us change. It didn't ask us if we wanted to, it forced us to. And people fear change because what is it? It's the unknown. One of the greatest fears is fear of the unknown. I don't know what's coming, and therefore I'm scared of it. And so when we have conversations, we don't know how the other person is going to react to what we say. And that becomes the fear of the unknown. And what do we fear most? The fear of the unknown. Now I'm placing that fear and I'm giving it a name, and I'm calling it conversation. I fear conversations. And instead of having that fearful conversation, then I do something else, right? And maybe I act out, or maybe I fire someone that shouldn't be, or maybe I, fill in the blank. But that's dangerous. And I want to try to get this world back into a place where we value people and we are not afraid to have those conversations. We're not afraid of that retaliation or whatever, because if we're truly prepared for that conversation, we're going to come across and we're not going to be emotional. We're not going to be accusatory. And we're going to say just the perfect set of words that are going to get our point across, but not cause that person to become defensive. That's an art. It truly is an art. And let me tell you, I haven't mastered it yet. I'm almost there. I'm getting there. I don't think I'll ever master it, but it's been 20 years in working for me, because it started in Gitmo. It really did. I had never became so aware of every word that left my mouth until I started in Gitmo.
You talk about then for the time in Gitmo and aware of every word, but one of the other points that I think it's important to mention, especially for people listening to the podcast that mightn't have some awareness or experience, you also had to get points across through an interpreter as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I did. Having had some experience providing some sessions over in Qatar and what I did over there, my original first thought was that I was being translating compared to interpreting. So in other words, I would say some words, you would say those words, but no, it's about interpreting the actual concepts and getting that across. that having such a refined art with what you do, and obviously I'm continuing to learn more about it. Can you cover off some items there just about some of the challenges of actually trying to get across that information in the effective way through an interpreter? You must have had to give so much briefing to that interpreter, because I mean, that's another part. You're in essence making somebody feel safe with the aid of a third party as well.
Yes.
Talk
Oh
about that
gosh.
a bit.
Yeah. I loved it, and I love training. I actually give classes on how to work with interpreters because it's that critical. And of course, in this day and age, where there's languages all over, it doesn't matter what country, and you're going to hear multiple languages in every country. So I give classes because you have to train the interpreter, but you also have to train yourself. And for me, I think how I became more aware of everything I said was that I knew everything was going to be translated. So I had to cut it down, and I had to use fewer words, make my message very clear and concise with lesser words. And I had to pause every so often so the interpreter could remember it and translate it. And then you have to deal with the word for word translation and the transliteration, or am I saying that right? The gist of it, right? Because sometimes what I say word for word doesn't make any sense in their language.
Yes.
And so, and then I would tell my interpreter, I'm like, translate word for word. If it doesn't make sense after that, do the transliteration, explain kind of what the gist of what I was talking about. But it really, you have to get trained on how to work with an interpreter because they're your team and you can't do your job without them. So the effective way to do that job is both of you being effective communicators.
Very valid point. Because I was even thinking then, as you were talking about that we have interactions and we watch for as our words hit and the impact on other people and how they're processing that. It's in essence doing that through an interpreter. You've got like a delay, and then the person with the final receive the message may have even been looking back to you and then looking askance to check, yep, is that what you meant? Or your facial response compared to the words that they've just heard from somebody else. It's such an unusual dynamic, and to be successful in there is just such a nuanced art form. Your choice of words was perfect. It's an art form. I completely agree.
Yeah, it is an art form. And I did not start off good. Woo, did I had a lot of practice and a lot of failures. But you know what? You learn from your failures and you get better and better and better.
One of the things that I wanted to also discuss with you is that the evolution. I mean, so your own personal journey, you've said and you speak openly about how you've continued to learn and grow and refine what you've done, but you started from that people-centric approach. I'm keen to see, because you're also very much a forward thinker in some of the discussions. I mean, we'll talk about Psychon and your vision for there and where things can really get to. But I'm asking a question out of left field here. I mean, we've gone from identifying truthfulness from trial by combat and trial by ordeal. We now have statement and word analysis, body language, elicitation, all these techniques that you're a master trainer. Where do you think it could possibly be going? Like, where do you think the future is with understanding others? Is it more other blend of technology? Is it going to stay old-fashioned people approach? I'm keen to see where your forward thinking or vision may be with that.
I have witnessed some technology and it's very cool. I love technology. I think it's great. But I also truly believe that human to human, you're not going to get anything better. Technology is great to, what's the word I'm looking for? Augment what I do, right? If there's something there that can augment what I do, absolutely, I love it. But at the end of the day, I think humans are the best because technology you can't relate to or build rapport with. Human, I can read, I can get a sense of you. I have intuition. Technology doesn't, and my intuition is going to get that feel, that vibe, that energy coming off you on top of what I'm seeing nonverbally, on top of the words that you're saying. And I'm doing statement analysis. On top of that last layer is me actively listening, knowing what question to ask, a follow-up question, in order for you to say, you got me, this is what really happened, or, this is the truth or whatever. But it's those layers. Technology doesn't come in layers.
No.
Technology can analyze your voice. Technology can analyze your physiological responses to stress. Technology can analyze your eye pattern movement analysis and pupil dilation. But what it can't do is get that intuition and that gut feeling and that connection and make you feel safe, and then do all of this analysis at the same time. So I can take a polygraph, a voice stress analyzer, and what else did I used to work with? We'll say there was I forget what the eye technology was, where it measured eye pattern movements for truthfulness or whatever. I can get all that together, but I can do all of that. And I have that human to human element too. So as an augment to jobs, I think it's great, but I still think that human to human or a human is going to be your best bet when it comes to creating a safe environment, gaining trust, and getting the truth.
I completely agree with you. That's very spot on there. I mean, we've got people doing their CVs and covering letters now with Chat GPT, and actually then prepping, doing all the interview prep. What's the 10 questions I'm likely to get asked with this experience and in this job? And so I agree. We need to remain people centric regardless of, and it was perfect choice of words, to just augmenting what we do. The core has always got to be people to people. I completely agree with what you're saying there. I know from, and I'm going back to your TED talk now, when we talk about one of the points in your TED talk about the power of three, and aside from being the lowest number and how palatable part. So I'm keen to put you on the spot a little bit here and think for in the recruitment type space for people now that are getting these Chat GPT resumes and things at the moment. What are 3 points that you could mention to somebody in the recruitment space about, if you're looking across the table for people, what's 3 things or 3 tips they can be looking for to get a better feel for the genuine person that they're sitting across?
I'm going to give you 1 point. You may only need this one. All right. Are you ready? Because and I was going to say it before you even asked me this question, because I heard Chat GPT and I'm like, oh God, here we go. What recruiters, listen to this carefully. What you need to do is you need to ask the unanticipated question that Chat GPT did not anticipate. And therefore you put that person on the spot to answer that question. And if they can't answer the question about this super highly technical, specific, whatever, then you got your truth right there. When I look at a resume, and I have looked at it not for recruiting, but for helping people find jobs in the past. If I look at a resume, I also help people write resumes, but just as a favor, not as a job. When I look at the resume, I know the questions, being an interrogator and interviewer, I know the specific questions I would ask on every bullet they write that they did not anticipate. Because here's the deal. You can only anticipate as much as, how do I want to say this? I don't want to say they're lying, but you can only get away with using Chat GPT or using vague information by anticipating the questions the recruiter is going to ask.
Yes.
Everybody anticipates questions that an interviewer is going to ask. Everyone. I do on podcasts.
Yep.
Like, I don't think I anticipate any of these, but anyway, I anticipate them. Why? Because I want to prepare my answer so I sound more intelligent and I sound believable. Ask the unanticipated question that they did not anticipate you asking. You will get your genuine response. And that is, so I'm going to say that is number 1. What you can't do is, even if you get that feel, you can't ask them a bold question like, who wrote it? What experience? You could, but it may get a little weird. So all you have to do is build rapport, number 1, and connect with them and gain that trust. With trust comes truth. I always say, get to know them. Don't dive right into the resume. Go get a connection somehow. Find some common ground. Make sure they're comfortable. Make sure they feel comfortable physically, mentally, emotionally, right? And then if they feel comfortable and safe and relaxed, go into the critical conversation. It's the conversational hourglass. When you start going to the critical conversation, you have already read this resume, have your unanticipated questions ready. because that's what's going to get you.
Great points. I mean,
Yeah. It's only 1 point, but it would save you so much.
well, I mean, the key point, I mean, I know you said like you're being one main point, but the parts that were as well for doing your homework, it also
Yeah.
other people centric during during that time and that planning process for you for the questions. It's got to be like a bit of a reset for leaders and recruiters now, because they really need to go back to it. Directly ties into what you said before, regardless of new technology. There needs to be that people to people focus for getting through intent, getting that genuine feel for the person that they're sitting across the table with. And with the high cost of replacing people in any organization at the moment, there's got to be like a lot of value for that.
Yeah.
That's some great feedback. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So I obviously moving forward from here now, and it was great to get some insight from you about some of the forward work on book number 4. And I'm definitely going to loop back to you to speak about that at another time. But moving forward from here, I mean, we're sitting in April now, so we're only 5 months away from Psychon. And I've got to say, as that's gaining more momentum in there, to see the combination of people the people whose names, including yourself, that I first saw on iBooks and YouTube, to immerse myself in everything from TED Talks to YouTube Talks to books and whatever, the combination of people having all in one space over a couple of days in that learning environment is going to be incredibly unique and such a wonderful opportunity. Can you share just a little bit about Psychon, I suppose, your vision there, and a couple of items around that?
Absolutely. Let me start with sector intelligence. So sector intelligence, as you know, is sponsoring Psychon. Sector intelligence, I had a vision a few years ago. It was before COVID. And I had a vision to take a military intelligence technique, tradecraft, and bring it to the private sector. It is not taught in the private sector. And it's called Elicitation. And I worked with a friend, and he is a friend of my husband's. They went to high school together, but he is very big CEO, VP in a company. And he said, my sales team could use this. They would love Elicitation. They would close more leads and blah, blah, blah. And this came because we just happened to be chatting, because I invited him to my husband's 50th 80s themed party that I was throwing. I never met him before. And we just started chatting. He's like, so what do you do, woman? And so we started chatting, and I told him, he's like, do you teach salespeople this? I said, no. He's like, well, you should. I'm like, okay. And that's what I do. And it's called Elicitation, as you know, and it's a conversational mastery skill set that makes people feel comfortable. That gets information, truthful information, without ever asking a question. It's very rapport-based, very non-accusatory, and it's just brilliant. But you have to plan it. You can't just wing these conversations. And so when I, circling back around being very aware of every word that comes out of my mouth, when it's really critical that this conversation goes right, and I want to meet this person and network with them and have them join my team or buy something or become my client, that conversation cannot fail. Like, it has to be perfect. So we plan these conversations. We think about techniques to use. We think about how to build rapport and what to say and the what ifs and all of that. So when I go have this conversation with you, I'm prepared and I'm confident. And I know the fact that I'm not asking a question, I'm using provocative statements to keep that conversation flowing forward. That's where the gold happens. That's where those genuine connections, that rapport, that trust. And I want to see you again. I like you. I think I want to sign up for that course or whatever.
And shields
again, rapport based.
Asking questions. And so people don't get shields and get defensive. So with those statements, yeah, very powerful. Please continue.
I'm a former interrogator, and I don't like being interrogated. When you ask it, and you know what else is starting to drive me crazy? People are hitting me up on LinkedIn, random strangers, they'll go in my inbox and they ask me, Lena, are you tired of, are you frustrated with, do your sales team? And I'm like, stop asking me questions. I don't even know who you are, and you know nothing about me. And I definitely don't have healthcare issues for my clients, right? Or my team right now. I'm like, where does this come from? Like, stop interrogating me. Have a conversation with me, get to know me. And so that's what Elicitation is. It's having a conversation, getting to know me. Let me keep pushing forward because we got to get back to PsyCon. So I established this company. And of course, I meet people like you, and you've trained with me, and other people around the globe who are just amazing. All of you have trained with me. And so I have brought you guys in, and together, right, with this great crew, we decided, hey, we want to have fun and get together. And then we decided, well, how are we going to do this? Let's hold a conference. And we're like, well, let's make it epic. And we did. I have Janine Driver as our celebrity keynote speaker. We have, authors. We have a former MI6 author, TV celebrity coming from England. Robin Dreek is going to be one of our keynote speakers, former FBI spy recruiter. We have author meet and greets. We have big sessions in the ballroom. We have breakout sessions, a menu. You have like 6 courses you can attend over 2 days. We have a spy game where you will learn the techniques that you learn. And the spy game is headed by a former CIA agent. She's amazing. We have a fun 007 martini meet and greet hour. And for certain level tickets, there's 3 tiers. We have the kickoff before the conference on Wednesday night is a private VIP kind of get together to meet all the keynote speakers and Janine Driver. So that'll be a lot of fun. And it's just a lot of fun. It's family. You get to meet all these people. It's not like we're on stage and then we disappear behind the curtain. We are right there in the crowd with you. We're sitting with you. We're at your tables. We're talking to you. If we're not on stage, we're with you. If we're not teaching, we're with you. And I just think, the sharing of information, the information is going to be like taking 10 master classes at one time. That's number one. Number two, you just get to network with amazing people. You get to network with the people who are coming and all of us who are going to be there speaking and presenting. And it's just fun. It's just going to be a lot of fun. And you get really cool swag as well. We got some great swag.
I think for the summary of people coming there and the combination of skills, whether you're a person in sales and relationships wanting to increase your conversions and better understand the people that you're with, whether you're a leader wanting to better understand and help unify and align your people, whether you're just wanting to build your own self-confidence in communication, connection, and turning rapport into trust and influence. I mean, the outcome of these, I agree, it's 10 masterclasses plus the combination of over 150 years experience of the masters in their craft worldwide, all in one spot in Dallas, like in September, is going to be absolutely incredible.
I mean, where can you go to meet a former spy recruiter? We're even going to have a spy. I think we're going to get Jack to come. He was a spy in the United States living here. He's amazing. Like, it's just crazy. The caliber of people that are coming to this has blown my mind. I'm excited to be all around them. I can't wait. And the other thing is, when you talk about who should attend, right? Although Sector Intelligence, that company, I kind of birthed it to help sales. The thing is, if you want, like you said, you want to work on your confidence in your conversational skill set. You're an entrepreneur. You're starting off in the business. You want to know the exact words on how to pitch your clients, and I don't like pitch because we don't pitch. We actually have conversations, but you want to know the words, your one-line moneymaker. What should it be? You want to know how to have those conversations with potential clients and build your personal brand, your company brand, and your client base. You're an auditor. And your countless investigations and interviews trying to decipher whether or not somebody's being honest with you about where they spent their money this year. So there's so many industries that it benefits. It's not just for sales.
And the other point from the sales point of view, I mean, I can speak now from having had some training with yourself, picked up some items from Gavin, from Robin, from Jasper, from the people within our tribe.
Yeah.
Having not being from the instructor point of view, being someone now actually involved in some sales parts, is that the power of these things is that before I'm sitting across the table from somebody, I already have an awareness of what words they align with positive experiences, their gesture patterns and things. But the other part is not falling in the trap that if you're in a sales point of view after the meeting thinking, that went well, but it wasn't 100% what I was after. The difference is now I sit across the table from people and live through the meeting, I'm able to adjust the trajectory based on seeing the receipt on how things are processing and the changes, for people that I'm interacting with. So when I say, what you do is so powerful, from the leadership, recruitment, sales development, personal confidence, all those, it's all tied to this, what we first started with, people-centric approach is just incredibly
Yeah.
impactful. I can't wait to see as this continues to develop as well.
Yeah. And you know, that goes back to, I loved how you said that, sitting across the table and being able to adjust. You can't do that if you're not actively listening, if you're not having that attention on their facial expressions of emotion or their gestures or their body shifts or any type of physiological response to stress, because all that's information coming to you saying, that wasn't the right thing to say this, right? That wasn't what you should ask. Go back to provocative statements. That wasn't so good. You haven't connected with this person yet. Focus on that.
So tying this back to the central theme, I suppose, with the podcast as well, is that what we first spoke about, whether it's from the leadership point of view, about gaining like information, about in the recruitment space, all these, and even the point you just mentioned then is going to happen on the back of making people feel comfortable and safe, giving them that value, making them feel validated, making them know that during that interaction, they've got your undivided attention for them. All these skills are incredible arrows in your quiver on top of just that central making people feel noticed and like and valued. So thank you very much for everything you've shared. Where can people find out more about Lena Sisco and what you're doing and you know where you're heading as well? Where's the best people to find that?
You never know that. I never know it. You can find me at sectorintel.com. So Sector Intelligence. And you can also, at the top menu, there's a page just for SciCon. We call it SciCon, Sector Intelligence Conference. Not too clever, but it sounds awesome. SciCon 5I, because we literally focus this conference around 5 I's. You can read about them. There's ticket prices. All the speaker bios are up, although I do have a potential guest surprise speaker coming. I'll find out this week. And so everything about SciCon, Sector Intelligence is there. You can also find me at thecongruencygroup.com. That's my initial company, started in 2013, where I do my online training with people like Scott in elicitation or advanced interviewing and negotiation, of course, body language and statement analysis as well. And you can also join our amazing Facebook family. It's called TCG, for the Congruency Group Tribe on Facebook. Look us up, request to join, and join our tribe. And if you join the tribe, you get a very special 15% off all the SciCon tickets. So I just did a post today on that. Yeah. And that's limited though. There's only 50 tickets available for that. So that's limited. And of course, you can find me on LinkedIn, Lena Sisco on LinkedIn as well. And
thank you, Lena. And whether it's the TCG tribe and on LinkedIn as well, I mean, you share some incredible information and tips like you through both of those as well. I mean, that's the other part why I'm so excited about for SciCon, is that everybody that's attending and people in the tribe shares their thoughts. And that happens when you've got a culture of people feeling safe and feeling comfortable in sharing like their thoughts. So it's in every element of your life, whether it's the Facebook group or how you lecture, like it just shows how much your values align with the way that you interact and act. So thank you thanks very much for being like a guest on the podcast. I can't wait to share this with everybody because you've shared some absolute gold throughout this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.